Good morning everyone. This is Kaylin Kamikawa. Last time, at COP26 held in Glasgow, England, the Climate Action Network, CAN, created by an environmental NGO, we announced that we will give a fossil award to Prime Minister Fumio Kishida's speech. The reason is, the support meaning Prime Minister Kishida is the reason why Japan continues to use coal-fired power. It was reported that apparently, their concern is simply to make coal-fired power generation a spearhead. If you think that will solve this problem, you're totally congratulations. I just don't understand that the story doesn't go on because there is no concrete alternative. The countries that can afford the alternatives, and, for that matter, the funds, perhaps without understanding that there is only Japan in the world. Are you just hitting Japan and playing? By the way, Swedish environmental activist Greta Thunberg, 18, she complained during a street activity in Glasgow where the world leaders gathered. She said, COP26 is the same as previous COPs and does not lead us anywhere. At the COP, politicians and powers are just pretending to take our future seriously. This is not leadership. Leadership is what we do to change, she said. Mr. Greta responded to global warming countermeasures by world leaders who are only words and do not take action. She truncated it as crap, 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 blah, blah, blah. She said, no more blah, blah, blah. The organizer, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, was also at the opening ceremony. He even urged political leaders in each country to take action, citing blah, blah, blah. However, it seems that he doesn't have any solution. Is it just like the Constitutional Democratic Party in Japan, or is it just a fool? I also thought, but apparently not. Excuse me. You look at the time, place, and the other person and say something, it's computationally expensive, www. On the BBC's Sunday show, The Andrew Marr Show, China is still building a coal-fired power plant. Why should Britain make a difference? Greta said. It's easy to blame someone, and that's why we need the cooperation of the international community, he said. China's coal-fired power plant construction ignores the reality of climate change, she replies. The Chinese Communist Party newspaper, the international version of the People's Daily, and the Global Times, electronic version, bite into this. Thunberg, who has been skipping school since the age of 15 and is participating in so-called climate change demonstrations, he is portrayed as an avid environmental activist in the West. She said, Western countries are not making enough efforts to curb emissions. It's a great tool to look away from the fact, she argues. According to Global Times, Greta is from a Chinese internet user. She is said to have been nicknamed, she is a puppet of Western politicians. She was fairly hated by China too. www. If she can blame China openly, she's a big deal, isn't she? While like playing cards, Greta has never been. She has publicly criticized former US President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. This time, China is added to that. I think that China will argue with the crushing of Mentz. If you continue to criticize openly, I will be a fan of Greta, right? www. Let's take a look at the contents of the BBC. But there are a lot of interesting shows in England.
We're being asked in this country to remove gas boilers, change the way we heat and insulate our houses. Many families will have big financial hits on all of those kind of things, and they'll be sitting there at home thinking, why should we be doing this when China, for instance, is still building more coal-fired power stations?
Yeah.
Why should we be leading? What would you say to them?
Yeah, exactly. That's what everyone says. And that's what makes it so hard, because you can always blame someone else. In Sweden, for instance, we can say, why should we do this when you just like look at the UK? I mean, it's always someone that's bigger that you can blame on. And that's why it's more important that we need to work together internationally and globally to make sure that everyone does this transition. Not the least pushing China, who are still building coal power plants, which today is quite out of touch with the reality, if you ask me.
And of course, but you know, you're from Sweden, and like the UK, in Sweden there is freedom to protest and interest in protests and different voices. That's not necessarily the same in China and in Russia and in other countries. Do you talk at all to climate activists, for instance, in China, about what they're doing?
Yeah, I try to, as much as I can, and it puts like our perspective in a whole new perspective, because it makes you just feel so grateful that we are actually able to protest, and that just puts more responsibility on us who actually have the right to protest, to use that right, not just for our sake, but for everyone's sake, especially for their sake, to help them as well.